They say this game was designed by a cult. We didn't believe it until the third round. See. The screen pulses red. I'm breathing too fast. Not from the challenge, but from what happened just before the start of round 3. Lights flicker. The old basement TV hums like a wounded animal, and a whisper rides the static. Round 3 begins. I didn't press a button. I didn't touch anything, but the game insists. My hands are trembling on the controller. Outside the window, the wind rattles the sash like a warning. I know we shouldn't hit play again, but the screen is already counting down, and I realize there is no quitting. I open my eyes and the ceiling fan is spinning slowly overhead, a comforting rhythm, so ordinary I almost miss it. I'm drowning in the scent of stale coffee and yesterday's rain seeping under the windowsill. The living room is half lit by the glow of a dying lamp, the fuzzy hum of the fridge in the corner, and the steady ticking of the wall clock. My roommate Mark lies asleep on the couch. His breath, shallow, regular, safe. We moved into this place about 3 weeks ago, a creaky wood frame house just outside Columbus. Cheap rent, big basement, perfect for game nights, he said. Back then, I laughed. I didn't believe in haunted houses, curses, or cults. I just believed in a good time. That was before the game, before the red screen, the whisper, the countdown. This morning feels wrong. The air tastes thick, sticky, like something rotting just out of sight. I sit up, my legs heavy, muscles not ready to carry weight after a restless night. Outside, through the half-draped window, the dawn is pale and grey, not cold but tired, as if daylight itself is still waking up. I stand. My feet touch the cold wood floor. I want water. I want clarity. But the kitchen light flickers. Once. Twice. I pause, hand on the cabinet door, staring at the bare bulb overhead. It yawns. Flickers again. I shut my eyes, clench my jaw. When I reopen them, the bulb is still, steady. I shake my head. Maybe too much caffeine last night. But the unease lingers, flickering in the corners of my vision. I make my way to the fridge on half-wobbly legs, turn the handle. The fridge whines, then coughs. But inside, nothing. Just a dark hollow, as empty as the silence around me. I shut it, breathe out slow. The hum recedes. When I turn back toward the living room, the TV is on. Not the basement set. This old tube TV beside the bookshelf, dusty, unused. I remember the last time I touched that remote. It was before we moved in. Now there's something flickering on the screen. Static, blurry grey snow drifting across black. No volume, no program loaded, only interference. I don't remember turning it on. Something in me freezes, that small rational part, but it's overwhelmed by the primal jolt. I step toward the TV. My breaths are short, my fingers itch at my pockets. I force myself to reach for the remote on the coffee table, but hesitate. The static shifts, it pulses, like a heartbeat. Then a face, distorted, warped, but old, grainy, grey. It glances up, open mouth, a whisper, garbled, but real, very real. My chest erupts. I drop the remote. The remote hits the wood floor with a dull clatter, then skids across the boards. The face fades, the static returns, and my heart still pounds against my ribs like something desperate to escape. I almost sprint to the lamp, bat it off, send the room into darkness. The only light comes through the window, the weak, ashen dawn. I catch my breath. I tell myself I'm imagining it. The static, the face, must be a trick of the old TV, some reflection, some artifact of static. I tell myself, we were playing late, too much coffee, not enough sleep. I tell myself, and almost start to believe it. Then I realize the back of the TV is warm, hot. I reach to touch it. My fingers brush the plastic. Not warm, scorching. Shock flares through me. I jerk back. The house groans, a long, slow moan of wood and nails. Wind, maybe, or the house settling. But in the silence that follows, I'm not sure which is worse. I look for Mark, half expecting him to stir, to ask what's wrong, but the couch is empty. The blanket is tossed aside as if he rose mid-dream and vanished. Panic flares low in my gut. I call his name. No answer. I flick the lamp back on. The harsh light blends with the morning, but the basement door, just ahead, casts a shadow like someone leaning there. Tall, slender, waiting. My skin crawls. I take a step forward, another. Each footstep echoes too loud. The lamp trembles in my fingers as if I've shaken the wood grain lock on the basement door. I reach the top of the stairs, stare downward. The basement is a pitch-black void, no light, no bottom, only a tight smell of damp concrete and something deeper, older, a sick, sour stink that seeps into my lungs. I'm not supposed to go down there anymore. Not after last night's session, I know that. But something whispers to me, soft, almost pleading. It's not Mark, it's not human. It says, "Come." Every hair on my neck stands. I force myself to take a step back. My eyes sting. My breathing comes ragged, muscles trembling. I take another step away from the stairs. Toward the door, the front door, sunlight, normal. Then I hear a laugh, quiet. Far, children maybe, or old. I can't tell. Husk, quiet. It echoes like stones dropped in water. It reverberates across floors and walls like I've disturbed something old, something patient. My hands slack around the lamp. The light swings against the walls, casting jagged shapes, like claws. I don't watch them. I don't want to see them. A sudden crash. The remote from the coffee table slides across wood, knocks against the sofa. My head snaps. The TV flickers again. The screen flashes white, then black, then blank. The warmth fades. The hiss of static vanishes. Silence. My chest heaves. I taste fear in my mouth. Copper, sweaty, metallic. I reach for my phone. It's there, face down on the floor, screen dark. I pick it up with a trembling hand. Nothing. Locked. No notifications. Nothing. But I know this is wrong. I drag the phone into my hand, flip it over. The lock screen, a photo, not mine, not one I ever took. It's a picture of us, Mark and I. Around the screen, shards of glass. We sit at the cheap basement table, the game board spread out in front of us, pieces arranged in strange patterns, cards stacked. The picture is grainy, horrible, like taken from a static-ridden camera, the edges burnt away. And I know, I didn't take this photo. My blood runs cold. I raise the phone higher, nearly dropping the lamp. I squint, heart thudding. There, in the top corner of the screen, a shape, tall, slender, watching us. Behind the camera, its face, just a blur of shadow and sweat. I breathe in, breath out. The lamp dips. I have to steady it. I don't yell. I won't. I step toward the front door instead. Each step slow, deliberate. Through the living room, past the couch, empty like yesterday. Past the dusty bookshelf, the doorway where I left my shoes last night. I don't look back. Door handle rattles. I twist it. The lock clicks. The door creaks open. A blast of cold autumn air hits me, sharp, cleansing, real. I step out into the porch. The wood boards creak under my shoes. Outside, the sky opens, pale morning light. Trees shiver in a wind too light to feel. The street is empty, perfectly ordinary. I stand there, the phone still in my hand, the lamp in the other. Then I realize something. The game case and the old cardboard box is in the mailbox, and it wasn't there last night. My heart seizes. I take a step forward. I stare at it. Then the mailbox lid snaps itself shut. There is no wind, no outside force, only the hinge, slowly creaking. I grip the lamp tighter, and whatever made that hinge move, whatever wants me to pick up that game, is still watching. I didn't open the mailbox right away. I just stood there staring at the closed lid like it had teeth. My breath fogged in the morning air, but my palms were sweaty, slicking the sides of the flashlight still clutched in my hand. Everything in me screamed, walk away. Go inside. Go back to bed. Blame the whole thing on stress or sleepwalking or caffeine. Instead, I convinced myself it was a prank. Mark had always been into weird stuff, analog horror, urban legends, haunted games from the deep end of the internet. And he knew how to mess with me. Hell, he'd faked possession once in college and kept it going for 2 full days before he cracked. Classic Mark. So yeah, maybe he left the box there. Maybe he got up early, slipped it into the mailbox, turned on the TV. Maybe that creepy photo on my phone was some app or glitch. A filter, deep fake, whatever. I wanted it to be him. I needed it to be. So I walked to the mailbox, heart thudding like it wanted out. Slowly, I pulled down the metal flap. The box sat there. Old, matte black cardboard with a strange circular seal stamped on the lid in faded crimson. No branding, no title, no instructions, just that sigil, like an eye surrounded by jagged symbols I didn't recognize. It looked melted at the edges, like it had been burned then repaired. Not new, not mass-produced. The same one we'd played with last night, except that wasn't possible. We left the box in the basement. I remember clearly. We finished round 2, argued about whether it was rigged, and then Mark said he was done. He tossed the die into the corner and we packed everything up. I was the last one downstairs. I placed the lid on the box. I remember doing that. But now here it was, outside. I looked around. The street was dead. No cars, no joggers, no sign of Mark. I grabbed the box with 2 fingers and lifted it out like it might bite. The cardboard felt too warm, almost like skin after a fever breaks. I nearly dropped it right there. Back inside, I placed it on the dining table. My hands trembled the entire time. The living room TV was off. No more static. The old lamp still buzzed faintly in the corner, and the clock ticked along like nothing had changed. Like none of this was wrong. I found Mark's phone in the bathroom. Screen cracked, battery drained. That made no sense. He never left it behind. Not even in the shower. I searched the house, no sign of him. Not in the basement, not outside. I called his name again, still nothing. Maybe he went for coffee, I thought. Maybe he left early. But that didn't explain the TV, the picture on my phone, the game in the mailbox. I powered on my laptop, searched for the game using keywords: black game box, cult board game, cursed sigil cardboard, round-based horror game with red seal. Nothing came up that matched, except for one thread, buried in an old forum, dated back to 2008. Anyone ever heard of a game that shows up randomly? No instructions, no branding, just says continue when you open the lid. We found it in our uncle's attic. I swear it changes when you're not looking. Had 3 rounds, we only got through 1. The post had 0 replies, the user account was deleted, but the symbols in the attached image, they matched the box on my table exactly. That's when I stopped pretending. I stared at the box, its lid still sealed. My hand hovered over it. I told myself, don't open it. Then I did. Inside, the components were exactly as we left them, but different. The game board now had a new marking, a 3rd circle that hadn't been there last night. A red one, almost pulsing. The cards were rearranged, new symbols. The same die sat in the middle, but instead of numbers, each side bore a word. Pray, offer, remember, bleed. Listen, continue. Last night, the die had different faces, and the game had spoken. Not out loud, not with voices, but every time we took a turn, something happened. Power outages, phone screens glitching. Mark swore he saw something crawling along the ceiling at one point. I chalked it up to paranoia, but now the game was back, and it was different. I snapped the lid shut and stuffed the box under the couch, out of sight. I tried to go about my day, did the dishes, swept, blared music in the kitchen just to drown out my own thoughts, but I couldn't ignore it. At 3:17 in the afternoon, the lights flickered again. The living room TV turned on by itself. Same red screen, same countdown. 10, 9, 8. I lunged and yanked the power cord from the wall. The screen went black. My breath caught. For a few seconds, I just stood there waiting for something to lunge out from behind the sofa, or for the game to whisper something into my spine. Nothing happened. Just silence. And then my phone buzzed. I picked it up. New message. Unknown number. You can't skip round 3. The moment I read it, the lights dimmed. My phone screen cracked, not shattered, cracked, like something inside had hit it. I dropped it and backed away. The couch moved, just a tremble, just a nudge, like something underneath it was breathing. I ran outside, slammed the door behind me, and stood on the porch trying to stop my hands from shaking. But even from out there, I could hear it. From inside the house, a low mechanical voice from the TV speaker. Round 3 begins in 30 seconds. I didn't go back inside right away. Not until the countdown ended. I stood on the porch, barefoot, staring at the house like it was something unfamiliar, something infected. The air around it felt charged like the air before a storm. Every instinct told me to run. But where? Mark was gone. My phone was dead. My car wouldn't start when I tried it earlier. And whatever this was, it wasn't going to stop just because I stood outside. So I waited. 30 seconds. The TV's voice had gone silent. The lights inside no longer flickered. Everything had gone still again. Too still. I stepped back through the doorway slowly, holding my breath like I was about to walk into a hospital room where someone had just died. Every creak under my feet sounded louder than it should have. The living room lamp still buzzed, a low droning hum like a fly circling something rotten. The TV was off. The game box was still under the couch, but there was something new on the table, a single sheet of paper, folded in half. I didn't put it there. Neither did Mark. I would have noticed. My heart thudded as I reached for it. The paper felt slightly damp, like it had been in a basement or crawl space for years. It smelled like mildew and ashes. I unfolded it carefully. It wasn't handwritten. It looked like an old newspaper clipping, photocopied in black and white. The headline was faint, like it had been copied too many times. 3 children found dead after game in church basement, Franklin County Dispatch, August 14th, 1996. I read the first few lines, my hands beginning to sweat. Authorities are still unsure what caused the sudden deaths of 3 local children discovered in the basement of St. Magdalene's Church early Tuesday morning. The bodies were found arranged in a perfect triangle, each child with symbols burned into the floor beneath them. No obvious signs of trauma were found. A strange board game was recovered at the scene, though investigators say it was not commercially available. The game had no instructions. Police are still questioning surviving members of the congregation. I dropped the paper like it burned me. My stomach turned. The symbols in the photo. They matched the ones on our game board. Exactly. Even the strange circular emblem in the center, the eye, it was identical. And the phrase beneath the picture, they played, the game kept score. I stumbled back and almost tripped over the couch. My knees buckled. This wasn't just some weird underground internet hoax. This thing had a history, and I wasn't the first to find it. I tried again to convince myself it wasn't real, that maybe Mark found this clipping, printed it as a joke, left it there to scare me. But deep down I knew he didn't. The paper was old, water-stained. The ink had bled at the edges. And I hadn't seen Mark since last night. I picked it up again. In the corner, someone had scrawled a message in red ink. Only the 3rd round draws blood. My skin crawled. I rushed to my room, threw open my closet, and pulled down the box of random junk I'd kept from college. Somewhere inside was the camcorder we used for dumb sketches back in freshman year. If something happened again, if this game did something, I needed proof. Something I could show Mark, or the police, or a priest, anything to make it feel less insane. I found the camcorder under an old hoodie, miraculously still charged. I brought it to the living room, turned it on, hit record, and pointed it at the game box. Then I lifted the lid. This time there was no whisper, no sudden draft, just the stale smell of cardboard and something else, like burnt incense and rust. The board had changed again. A new card had been laid face up in the center. I swear I didn't put it there. It read, Round 3, remember what was buried. I picked it up with 2 fingers. On the back was a map, not a real map. A hand-drawn floor plan of our house. The basement. Scribbled symbols. A big red X near the back corner. That part of the basement was unfinished. Dirt floor, old stone wall. We never went back there. Too damp. Mark always joked it smelled like a grave. I hesitated. Then, like I wasn't in control anymore, I found myself descending the basement stairs with the camcorder in one hand and a flashlight in the other. Every step creaked. The air got colder, tighter. The walls wept with moisture. By the time I reached the bottom, I could barely hear anything but my own breath. I turned left, toward the corner marked on the card. The floor there was damp soil. The stone wall behind it crumbled in patches. As I moved the flashlight slowly over the area, something caught the light. Wood. I crouched down, dug with my hands. It wasn't deep, maybe an inch or two, just enough to hide a rotting wooden box. No lock, just a lid nailed shut. I pulled out my multi-tool and pried it open. Inside, photos, old ones, faded, black and white, at least 100 of them. Each one showed a different group of people, always seated around a table, always with the same game at the center, different years, different places, but the same setup. Some looked like families, some looked like strangers, some looked terrified. In one, a woman was screaming, caught mid-motion, eyes wild, mouth open. The game board in front of her was on fire. Another showed a man slumped backward in his chair, a red smear across his chest. Everyone else at the table stared straight at the camera, unblinking. The final photo wasn't black and white. It was full color and recent. It showed me and Mark. Taken from inside the house, we were sitting at the game table, the board between us, but we never took that photo. I dropped it. Something moved behind me, a sound like air being sucked through teeth. I spun around. The camcorder swung wildly in my grip. The flashlight caught nothing, just shadows. I backed away from the corner, my breath coming too fast, the weight of all those photos pressing against my skull like a migraine. Then I heard the sound again, a low voice, coming from upstairs. It said, "It's time to remember." And then I heard Mark scream. I didn't run upstairs, I should have, but I didn't. Mark's scream wasn't loud, it was short, cut off, like someone had clamped a hand over his mouth mid-yell, or worse. I froze halfway up the basement steps, back pressed to the cold concrete wall. My knuckles were white on the flashlight. The camcorder dangled from my wrist, still recording, its blinking red light a silent witness to everything. I waited, listening. Silence. Then footsteps, slow, careful, not coming down, just pacing, above me, in the living room. Not Mark's usual gait. Mark walked like he was always late to something, clumsy, heavy-footed. But this was quieter, precise, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. I took the steps one at a time, flashlight off now, breath held, eyes wide. When I reached the top, I paused and peered around the doorframe. The living room was empty, lamp buzzing, couch untouched, TV still off. But the front door was wide open. A breeze rolled in, and with it came the smell of something foul, like wet dirt and something metallic. Blood, maybe. I stepped forward. "Mark," I whispered. No answer. The dining table still held the game box, its lid now closed, like it had never been opened, like the game was trying to reset itself. I walked toward the door slowly. Outside, the neighborhood looked normal. Trees still, no cars, no birds, no wind. And then I saw him. Mark stood at the edge of the driveway, back turned to me, staring into the woods. He was completely still, too still. "Mark!" I called again, louder. He didn't move. I walked down the steps toward him, each one dragging like I was moving through molasses. He didn't turn around until I was a few feet away. When he did, my blood froze. His eyes were wrong. Not bloodshot, not glazed, just off, like someone had pulled a film over them, milky, vacant. No focus, but he smiled. That smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "You found the photos," he said calmly. "Good. What the hell is going on?" I asked. "Where did you go this morning? And what was that scream?" I didn't scream. His voice was flat, no inflection, no emotion. "Mark, come inside. We need to talk." He turned his head slightly, like he was listening to something behind him. Then he whispered, "You shouldn't have looked in the box." "What box?" He didn't answer. I reached out to touch his arm. He flinched violently, jerked back like I'd just jabbed him with a knife. "Don't," he snapped. "It's almost started." "What started? What are you talking about?" His lips trembled. For a second, something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or memory. Then it was gone. He leaned in, voice low. "Round 3 isn't about the game anymore. It's about what we forgot." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You're scaring me, man." His mouth twisted into that unnatural smile again. "Good." He turned and walked toward the tree line. "Mark!" No reaction. I didn't follow him. Not yet. I ran back inside, locked the door, shut the windows. I played back the camcorder footage, hoping to see something I missed, something logical, something real. The footage was worse than I remembered. When I played the video of myself in the basement, I could see a figure standing in the corner behind me. Just a glimpse, barely in frame, but it was there, tall, pale, motionless. And it hadn't been there when I filmed it. I paused the frame, zoomed in. It wasn't Mark, and it wasn't human. It had no face, just a featureless oval of mottled flesh, like something unfinished. That's when the feed glitched. The camcorder screen went black, then flashed red, then displayed a single word in white text. "Trust." I dropped it. The power in the house flickered. The lamp burst with a loud pop, sending sparks onto the carpet. I bolted to the kitchen for the breaker box, but stopped cold. There was a note on the fridge. One of our old magnets held it there. A yellow sticky note in Mark's handwriting. "If I forget who I am, don't trust me." The back of my neck went ice cold. I tried to remember when he wrote that. I couldn't. I turned around, heart racing, and nearly screamed. Mark stood at the living room window, just staring in, motionless, expressionless. His hand rested against the glass like he was feeling the house breathe. I didn't let him in, not that time. Instead, I backed away slowly, then ran to the bedroom and locked the door. Outside, he didn't move. He just stood there, watching. Hours passed. At some point, I passed out on the floor. When I woke up, it was night. The house was dark. The game board was in the middle of my room. I didn't bring it there. 3 cards were laid out, face up. Betrayal, obedience, memory beneath them, the die. It rolled by itself, spun, stopped. Memory. Then the door handle jiggled, softly, rhythmically, like someone trying to remind me they're still there. The door handle kept jiggling, slow, steady, like it had a pulse. I lay on the floor, paralyzed, watching it twitch. The bedroom was lit only by the camcorder's standby light, a weak red glow barely strong enough to catch the sheen of sweat on my hands. Then it stopped. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Silence. Then a knock. Deliberate. 3 slow raps that seemed to echo longer than they should have. I crawled to the door and pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing. I held my breath. And then, a whisper. It didn't come from the hall. It came from inside the room. I turned fast, flashlight swinging wild across the walls, landing on the game board. The cards were gone. The die, too. In their place was a single item, a Polaroid photograph. Still developing, the image swirling into clarity as I watched. It showed my bedroom, this exact angle, but I wasn't in the picture. Something else was. A figure, blurry and hunched, stood in the far corner of the room, its body thin, almost elongated, like it had been stretched. No face, no definition. Just that same sickening suggestion of presence. I swept the flashlight toward the corner. Empty. But the air changed. Thicker, harder to breathe. Like humidity without the heat. My ears popped like I'd gone underwater. The Polaroid curled inward like it was being cooked from within. Its surface blistered, then caught fire spontaneously, tiny blue flames licking across the edges before vanishing. No smoke, no smell. I backed up into the closet, breathing shallow and fast, clutching the camcorder like it could save me. Then the lights came back on, all of them, bright, blinding. The camcorder beeped, display, battery error, then it shut off. And from behind the bedroom door, Mark spoke. Not yelled, not knocked, spoke. "Open the door, man, I remember now." His voice was different, like his throat was full of static, but it was him, wasn't it? "I didn't want this either," he continued. "They made me roll for you." Silence, then, "You lost." I didn't open the door. Instead, I sat there, curled up in the closet, flashlight off, trying to disappear. The air felt thinner. My thoughts kept slipping. Every time I blinked, I lost a second, or 2 or 5. I must have passed out again because when I opened my eyes, it was morning. Daylight pushed against the blinds. The door was ajar, just a crack. I rose slowly, crept forward, opened the door. No Mark, no game board, only silence and the smell of metal. I walked through the house, careful not to make a sound. The living room was empty, the front door still locked. No signs of entry. The kitchen, untouched. Even the fridge had power again. But the basement door was open, wide open. And there at the top step sat a VHS tape in a black plastic case. I hadn't seen one in years. Written across the label in jagged red ink, "Round 3, watch me." I don't own a VCR, but I remembered something. There was one in the basement, part of the old tube TV we used during the first session. We joked about it. Mark said it looked cursed. I thought it was funny. It's not funny anymore. I took the tape downstairs. Each step groaned like a warning. The basement light flickered, then steadied. I slid the tape in. The machine groaned, then played. The footage was grainy, colorless, a single locked camera angle, the basement table. We were seated there, Mark and I, both of us, from behind. In the footage, I was smiling, but my mouth didn't move naturally. It stretched, bent wrong, like skin pulling over teeth. Mark looked hollow. His eyes sunk in, as if whatever was in the room was inside him too. There was sound, whispers, chanting. Not English, not even language, more like a rhythm, primal, circular. Then in the tape I looked directly at the camera, so did Mark. At the same moment, like we saw me watching. The screen went black, then a final message, written in shaking white letters. "You rolled, remember, now you must see." The screen pulsed once, then off. The lights in the basement died, complete black. I stumbled backward, hit the stairs, fell. When I scrambled up to the first floor again, the power was out. The walls were wet. I mean dripping, like the entire house was sweating blood. Every mirror in the house had shattered. But worse, when I walked past the bathroom, the door opened on its own. Inside, etched into the tile in what looked like fingernail scratches, "He's not Mark." And beneath that, "You let him in." My mind started tearing at the seams. Had I opened the door in my sleep? Let him in? Was this possession? Psychosis? The game wasn't about strategy. It wasn't even about the players. It was about the house, about who stayed in it and who left changed. That night I tried to sleep in the bathtub. It felt safer for some reason. But just as I started to drift, I heard Mark's voice again, closer than ever, inside the bathroom. He whispered, "You only have one turn left." By the time morning came again, I wasn't sure it was real. The light through the bathroom window felt wrong. Too dim, too yellow, like a fake bulb imitating sunlight. I stayed curled in the tub, knees to chest, shivering under the shower curtain like it could shield me from what the house had become. But houses don't change on their own. People do. And I was starting to realize this wasn't just happening around me. It was happening to me. I crept out of the tub, barefoot, skin damp with cold sweat. The mirror over the sink was shattered again, but something had been traced in the shards, not with a finger, with something sharper, scraped deep across the glass. Round 4 doesn't end. I blinked, read it again. It hadn't been there last night. Round 4? There was no round 4. I didn't remember rolling. I didn't remember drawing a card. But that's the thing. The game didn't ask anymore. It just continued. I opened the door slowly, scanning the hallway. Empty, quiet, too quiet. No wind, no fridge humming, no outside noise. The house was soundproofed by some unnatural force now, like it existed in a vacuum. I grabbed my phone again, even though I knew it was useless. The screen turned on, but every app was gone, just static across the icons, like they were corrupted or never real to begin with, except one. In the center of the screen, a single app labeled Confess. I didn't tap it. I turned the phone off, walked toward the kitchen on stiff legs, past the couch, past the broken lamp, into that sickly morning light. The front door had been sealed shut, nailed from the inside. I swear it hadn't been the day before. I tried the windows. None would open. Some didn't even feel like glass anymore, more like a translucent membrane, flexible, warm to the touch, like skin. The air had a pulse now, a rhythm. Every few seconds I could feel it in my chest, syncing with my heartbeat. That's when I noticed the house was breathing, and something was growing in the basement. I didn't want to go back down there, but the ceiling above me creaked, groaned, warped like there was something heavy beneath my feet, pulling the structure inward. A new smell wafted up the stairs, wet copper, dirt, and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. I moved slowly down the steps, flashlight in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. There was no power, but the light found it. The walls, covered in carvings, not writing, not symbols, just memories. Scenes etched into the stone and wood like someone had clawed their nightmares onto the foundation. I saw myself, not metaphorically. I saw myself, a crude image but unmistakable. My face twisted, sitting at the game table, eyes gouged out, mouth open too wide. Next to me another carving, Mark, or what he had become. His body twisted, his limbs elongated, as if the game had reshaped him. Farther along the wall I saw others, dozens of them, hundreds maybe. People who had played this game over decades, centuries, all of them ending the same, buried, changed, forgotten. At the far end of the basement, something new had appeared. A wooden door, set into the foundation where before there had only been stone. It looked ancient, rotted, swollen with moisture, hinges rusted black. A single word was carved into the center. Remember. I didn't want to, but something deeper than instinct told me I had to. I opened it. Behind it, a narrow hallway, dirt floor. Walls pressed in like the earth itself was holding its breath. At the end of the tunnel I found a room, candle lit, no fire, just dim yellow flames hovering over waxless wicks. And in the center, a chair. Mark was sitting in it. But it wasn't Mark anymore. His eyes were sewn shut with thin black thread. His mouth gaped open, lips torn at the corners. His hands rested on the arms of the chair, palms facing up, revealing symbols carved deep into the flesh. I stumbled forward, whispering his name. His head snapped toward me, even with his eyes sealed shut, and he smiled. "Round 4 is you," he said. "What does that mean?" He shook his head slowly. "You brought the game here. You rolled the first die. You opened the house. Now it's yours." I didn't know what it was. "You did." His voice cracked, old, decaying. "You felt it. That curiosity. That hunger. You didn't stop. Not after the first round. Not after the second. Even when I tried to leave. I didn't stop you." "Yes, you did," he whispered. "You asked me to stay. You said one more round." I dropped the knife. "No." "You knew," he said. "We always know. We just pretend not to." I turned to run, but the hallway behind me was gone. Just a wall of earth. No exit. Mark rose from the chair. Strings of skin fell from his arms like wet parchment. He moved without sound, without hesitation. "There's no leaving now. You're the one who remembers. And this place..." He looked around. "This place feeds on memory." He stepped closer, and I forgot my name. I couldn't speak, couldn't scream, couldn't think. Only a single word floated in my head. Continue. He reached into his chest, and pulled out the die, held it out to me. You have to roll it, he said, or the house chooses for you. I backed away, hit the wall. The candlelight dimmed, the dirt shifted, and behind me, something started crawling through it. Something big, slow, ancient. I took the die, rolled. It hit the floor, spun, landed on listen. Mark smiled. It's starting. From beneath the house, a voice whispered, and it spoke with my voice. The voice from below spoke in my voice. Every syllable dripped with perfect mimicry, but none of it was mine. It whispered things I hadn't said in years, private things, regrets, sins. I lied to her. I watched it happen and said nothing. I left him in that room. Each confession scraped along the dirt floor like nails on wet wood. I fell to my knees. I wasn't sure if it was fear or guilt, or if the house itself was pressing down on me like a hand. But I couldn't breathe. My lungs wouldn't expand. Mark stood still, eyes sewn shut. But I knew he was watching me without them. You don't remember it yet, he said softly. But the game does. I turned to him, voice ragged. What is this? What are you? His stitched eyes twitched. I'm a player, like you were, like they all were. He pointed to the walls. I hadn't noticed them before, but now I saw that they were lined with old VHS tapes. Thousands, stacked floor to ceiling, each with a handwritten label. Some names were first names only, others were dates, some were just numbers. But every tape had the same word in the bottom right corner. Round 3, I walked to the shelf, my legs barely cooperating. Pulled one at random. The label said, Carmen, July 1992, Cincinnati. I turned it over in my hands. It was still warm. I don't understand. These are people who played? Mark nodded slowly. They made the game, or the game made them. Nobody's sure anymore. I pulled another tape. This one had my name. Eli, November 25th, round 3, in progress. I dropped it. It didn't hit the floor. It vanished mid-fall. The candlelight flared. Mark stepped toward me, slower now. He looked tired, worn down, like whatever was inside him had started to rot through. There's more under the house, he said. Not just the tapes. Why are you telling me this? Because I told the last one, and he told the one before him. It's how the game keeps score. He handed me a small leather-bound book, old, cracking. When I opened it, my breath caught. Inside were pages of journal entries, all written in different handwriting. Each entry described the same thing: the black box, the die, the voices, the missing time. Some entries were only a few lines before they broke off mid-word. Others ended in what looked like frantic scrawls of symbols and blood. One of the final entries was mine, written in my handwriting. But I hadn't written it. I didn't remember doing it. Mark doesn't know I kept playing after he fell asleep. I rolled again. Just once. Just to see. It said, listen. Now the walls won't stop talking. I staggered back. No, that's not true. But it was. Somewhere deep in my memory, under the noise, the adrenaline, the fear, I remembered. I had rolled, one last time, in secret. After the second round, Mark had passed out on the couch. I stayed up. I wanted one more turn, just to see. I thought it would be harmless. It never was. I brought it here, I whispered. Mark tilted his head. You invited it. A sound, wet, heavy, echoed up from beneath the floorboards. The room shook. Dust fell like snow. The tapes rattled on their shelves, and the journal burst into flames in my hands. I dropped it, crying out, but the fire didn't spread. It vanished. Gone, like it never existed. The candlelight flickered violently. Shadows twisted on the walls. Mark fell to his knees, clutching his head. They're waking it up, he said. The ones who remember, the ones who confess. That's the price. I heard the voice again, my voice, this time louder. but now it was speaking to someone else. He buried it, but the house dug it up. He promised not to play again. He lied. And then I remembered the night I first found the game. It wasn't last week, or last month, it was years ago. I was 14. We found it in my uncle's attic after his funeral. I was with my cousin, Michael. We thought it was just some old board game. We laughed at how creepy it looked. We rolled once each. Nothing happened. But that night, Michael disappeared. They found his body in a creek 4 days later. No wounds, no trauma, just water in his lungs. I forgot that memory, blocked it out, pretended it was a dream. But the game remembered. The house remembered. I wasn't the first one to play it. I was the last. A final voice echoed through the dirt walls. Not mine, not Mark's. This one sounded ancient, like stone grinding against teeth. The game was designed to be remembered. Forgetting is cheating. Now the round is forfeit. Mark collapsed. The ground beneath me cracked. A fissure split the floor, and from it rose something pale and coiled. Not a creature, a structure, like a spine. It pulsed, breathing. Mark looked up one final time, face hollow, mouth slack. "They're not trying to kill us," he said. "They're trying to record us." And then the candles blew out. Darkness. And in the dark, I heard the whisper of my own voice, just behind my ear. "Your final card is waiting." I couldn't see a thing. The candles were gone. The spine-like structure had receded into the floor, leaving only a deep, throbbing vibration in the dirt, as if the house itself had swallowed its breath. Even the flashlight wouldn't turn back on. Batteries? Dead. Or something worse. I stood frozen in the pitch black, afraid to move because I was certain I wasn't alone. There were sounds, soft scraping behind me, like fingernails gently raking wood. Breathing, maybe. Or imitation of breathing. Then the voice returned. My voice. But now it echoed like it was coming from beneath my skin. One card left. A dull red glow ignited on the floor. It wasn't light. It was something else, like a memory given shape. Faint but pulsing. There, placed neatly in the dirt, a card. I didn't remember drawing it, but it had my name written across the top in jagged handwriting. Not printed, not typeset, written. Below it, a word, sacrifice. I stared at it, every nerve in my body screaming to look away. My pulse throbbed in my ears, drowning out everything but my own breath. I reached down, picked it up slowly. It felt hot, like holding a coal that had cooled just enough to touch but not enough to forget the burn. As soon as I touched it, the house reacted. The walls shivered, floorboards groaned. Somewhere upstairs, glass shattered again. And then, light. The room filled with pale, unnatural illumination from nowhere. It didn't come from above or below, it just was, bathing everything in sterile, detail-revealing white. The shelves of tapes were gone. In their place stood mirrors, dozens, each one reflecting not what was in front of it, but possibilities, versions of me. One mirror showed me slumped over a table, eyes black, mouth stitched shut. Another showed me holding the black game box, offering it to someone else, my cousin Michael. Another showed me burning the box, sobbing, and one showed me sitting in this exact room, alone, with blood on my hands, and no memory of why. The choice wasn't between right and wrong. It was between truth and erasure. The card vibrated in my hand. The word sacrifice shimmered like heat rising off asphalt. I looked down again and saw something new. Choose what dies, memory or self. And I understood. The game didn't kill you. It asked you to choose what you'd give up to survive. Your memories, everything it showed you, everything you remembered about what you'd done, what had happened, who you were. Or yourself, your mind, your identity, your soul. Forget and live, or remember and end it. I tried to speak. My throat was dry, cracked. Why me? The mirrors responded, all at once. Because you remembered first. A sound filled the room, static, wind, fire, all layered and warping. From the far side of the room, the thing that had been Mark stood again. His eyes were open now, threads torn, bleeding. He smiled. "You can't stop it," he said. "You can only choose how you leave." I backed away from him, clutched the card like a weapon. "I didn't want this." "You did," he said. "Curiosity is consent. You opened the lid, you invited it in. I didn't know. You knew enough." He reached into his chest again, into that unnatural cavity that had once held a heart, and pulled out the die. It looked different now. Each side had one word. Remember, offer, stay, sleep, erase, continue. He tossed it to the floor. It rolled, clattered, spun. Landed on, offer. A flash of red tore across the mirrors. Screams, hundreds of them, split the air like thunder in reverse. But they weren't random. They were voices I knew, my mom, my cousin Michael, Mark, me, all pleading, crying, begging, every mistake, every silence. Every time I looked away when I shouldn't have. The mirrors shattered in unison. Only one remained. And in it, I saw the real me, bloodied, alone, still holding the card. The voice returned. "Choose." I stood at the edge of something I couldn't name, and I knew what the game wanted. If I chose memory, I'd carry the truth. I'd know what I did, what I let happen. I could warn others, break the cycle or try, but the game would never leave me. I'd become part of it, a tape, a chapter. If I chose self, if I let the game erase me, I'd vanish. No pain, no memory, no more guilt, just absence. The room quieted. Mark stepped forward, holding out the die once more. "Roll," he said. I looked down at the card, then at the mirrors. Then I took the die and made my choice. But I won't tell you what it was. Not yet, because the game doesn't end when you play it. It ends when you pass it on. And now you're listening, aren't you? It didn't matter what I chose, that's the cruelest part, because when I opened my eyes again, I was in the living room, back upstairs. Daylight leaked through the blinds, but it was grey, false, the kind of light that doesn't warm your skin or reveal truth, the kind that only pretends to be morning. The house was silent. No Mark, no candles, no mirrors, but the game board sat in the center of the table, waiting. Reset again, lid closed, die placed perfectly on top, the way you'd set it up to start over with a new player. My hands were shaking. I couldn't tell if I was alive, or if I'd just started playing again. I grabbed the phone from the floor. It turned on, battery full, no signal, but one new notification, a video file. Round 4 final, attempt.move. I didn't open it. Instead, I moved. I threw on my shoes, caked with basement dirt, and sprinted for the front door. The nails that had sealed it were gone. Just the simple latch remained. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it, heart punching against my ribs. The door creaked open, and for the first time in what felt like days, I stepped outside. The air hit my face like a slap, cold, biting, real. I didn't wait. I ran. Down the steps, across the yard, barely registered the ache in my legs or the blood on my palms. I sprinted to the sidewalk, then the street. No cars, no sound, just me and the wind. I ran until the house disappeared behind me. Then I kept running, block after block, street after street, but every turn led me back to the house. No matter which direction I ran, right, left, straight, diagonal, my path always looped. Every shortcut became a trap. Every detour bent itself into a spiral. Until I was standing in front of the porch again, breath ragged, lungs on fire. And this time, the door was already open, waiting. I screamed, not in fear, in defiance. I picked up a rock from the yard and hurled it through the front window. Glass exploded inward. I didn't wait to hear it hit the floor. I stormed to the side of the house, grabbed a rake from the shed, smashed the kitchen window, tore through the siding. Anything to break its rules, anything to make it bleed, but it didn't. It watched. That's what it does. The house doesn't speak, it doesn't chase, it observes, and it adapts. By the time I reached the front door again, it was no longer open. The entire porch was gone. In its place stood a tall black door, taller than the house, impossible geometry, its frame stretched beyond the roofline into a ceiling that shouldn't exist, etched into the door in red. Continued. I backed away. Then I ran again. And this time, I got out. I don't remember how. I don't remember how long I ran or where I ended up, but the next clear moment was the gas station. Middle of nowhere. Flickering fluorescent lights. A bored teenager behind the counter texting while chewing gum. Music playing low over the speakers. The smell of fryer oil and mop water. I stumbled in barefoot, covered in dried blood and dirt, clothes torn. I looked insane. I was insane. The kid didn't look up. I collapsed in the snack aisle and sobbed. An hour later, paramedics showed up. Then cops. Then men in suits who didn't show badges. They didn't ask questions. They didn't take notes. They just took the black game box. I told them where the house was. They said there was no record of it at that address. I told them about Mark. They said no such person existed. No rental agreements, no police reports, nothing. They asked me to sign a release form. Said I'd had a breakdown brought on by stress, isolation, possible environmental exposure. Something about mold or radon. But they let me go. And I thought I was free. Until last night, when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, no message body, just an attachment, a video file. Round 5 intro.move. I opened it. The footage was from inside the house, from my old room. The bed was made, the lamp repaired, and seated at the desk was me. But not me now. Me, then, from before, from when I found the box. He looked at the camera, smiled, then whispered, "You should never have tried to leave." And the screen cut to black. So no, you don't escape. Not really. You fail your way out. You run until the game gets bored or decides you're useful for something else, but it never ends, it just waits. And maybe, worst of all, that black door still shows up in my dreams. Every night. Closer. The black door was inside the dream again. Same as always, tall, jagged frame that doesn't match the physics of the space around it. Always just slightly too wide for the hallway, slightly too high for the ceiling. It doesn't belong, and yet, in the dream, it always belongs. I stood in front of it barefoot, breathing hard, light bulbs overhead flickering like failing pulse monitors. The house smelled like static, and something burned. The card was still in my hand, the same one from before. Sacrifice. But now, beneath that word, something new had appeared. Handwritten, in what looked like my handwriting. You already gave what matters. Now see what remains. I turned the card over. Instead of instructions or options or cryptic threats, there was just a drawing, crude, almost childlike. It showed a circle of people all sitting around a table. In the center, the black box. Floating above it, a figure. Or maybe the figure. No eyes, no face, no limbs, just form, made of lines that twisted and repeated like spirals inside a maze. The card dissolved in my hand like ash. The door opened on its own. Inside, dark. I stepped through. This time I didn't wake up. This time, I descended. No stairs. Just weightlessness, like falling in slow motion through silence. Not the kind of silence that calms you, the kind that makes your ears ring and your thoughts crawl. Then, ground. A stone floor, wet, cracked, faint echoes of whispers in every direction. I was in the center of something massive, a chamber, like an underground cathedral built by hands that didn't care about symmetry or sanity. Walls curved unnaturally, angles where there shouldn't be angles, thaglyphs pulsing faint red light etched into the rock like veins. In the center stood the monster, but it wasn't claws and teeth and hunger, it wasn't scales or horns or rage, it was understanding. It looked like memory, a shape made of people, twisting faces, unfinished thoughts, whispered secrets. The thing was built from recollection, Voices looped and layered, parents yelling, children crying, prayers, chants, confessions. I saw Mark's face, then Michael's, then mine, each flickering in and out of the surface like reflections caught in passing. It didn't move, it didn't have to. The monster didn't hunt. It waited. I tried to speak, but my voice stuck in my throat like sand. Then I heard it. Its voice. But it didn't speak like we speak. It used my thoughts. And it said, "You gave us the tape. You gave us the memory. Now give us the rest." I fell to my knees, because I understood, finally. The game wasn't meant to kill you, not in a physical sense. It was meant to consume everything real, every unspoken word, every locked-away trauma, every buried emotion. The board, the die, the cards, they were just delivery systems, rituals, structures for harvesting. And the monster. It was never a creature. It was a recording, a living archive of guilt, of confession, of us. I saw rows of tapes embedded in the walls of the chamber, thousands, millions, each labeled in languages I didn't recognize. Some were names, some were numbers, some were screams. The monster stepped forward, or at least the space it occupied bent toward me, and it said, "You never escaped, you were archived." I screamed, louder than I've ever screamed in my life, and nothing came out, because screaming was a choice, and I'd already given that away. I backed away, stumbling, slipping on the wet stone, until my hand brushed something sharp. A card, another one. This one read, "Final turn." There was no die, no instructions, just one sentence burned into the card. "Record what you saw or forget what you were." I felt something warm in my hand, the camcorder. I didn't know how it got there, but it was recording, battery full, red light, blinking. I turned it toward myself, clicked playback. And on the tiny screen I watched the footage it had just captured. But it wasn't me, it was you, sitting at your desk, watching this. And the tape ended with a whisper, "Your name's on the next card." The screen went black. No static, no noise, just absence. I looked down at the camcorder. The red recording light had gone out. The lens stared at me like an empty eye, the machine dead in my hands. Then came the silence, but not the heavy, watching silence of before. This was the kind of silence that comes after something terrible has happened, the kind that tastes like ashes and leaves pressure in your chest like grief or guilt. The monster had vanished, but the chamber wasn't empty. I was standing in the center now, the stone beneath my feet rearranged, circular, symmetrical, like a ritual space. All around me the walls began to shift, not open, not collapse, just reveal. Behind the cracked stone was flesh, not human, not animal, just something ancient and alive, something that had grown around itself for centuries, absorbing memory, trauma, sins that were never spoken aloud. A biological archive built on pain, on repetition. That's when I felt it. My skin. It wasn't peeling, not like burning, not like rot, like shedding. Layer by layer I was being stripped of the outer self, not by force, not by claws or teeth, by truth. The more I remembered, the more my body unraveled. I saw flashes. My cousin Michael drowning, Mark's stitched eyes, the card that said sacrifice. Me rolling the die alone in the dark after the second round, inviting it in. And worst of all, the thing I still hadn't confessed. It surfaced like a breath I'd been holding since childhood. The basement, the real basement, not the one in the game house, the one from when I was 10, the neighbor's kid, Shane. We were playing hide and seek. He went down into my uncle's basement. I told him to go. I told him I'd follow. I never did. They found him a week later. They said it was an accident. He'd fallen, broken his neck. I never told anyone that I made him go down there, that I watched him close the door behind him, that I heard the scream, that I pretended I hadn't. It wasn't the game that marked me, it was that decision, that silence, that memory. And the game didn't create the monster. It just collected the people who had already fed it. The wall of flesh in front of me pulsed, opened, a slit. Not mechanical, not metaphorical, an orifice, a passage. The voice returned, not in my ears this time, but inside the hollow spaces of my chest. You confessed. Now enter. I didn't move, because I understood now this was death. But not the kind with corpses and coffins. This was transformation. I wasn't going to die. I was going to become something else. A recording, a memory, a chapter in the game. I took one step forward, then another. Each footfall made the chamber ripple. I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt emptied. The passage closed behind me. Darkness again. But I was no longer alone. I felt others around me, millions of them, each humming with memory, with confessions that never reached the air. I wasn't being erased. I was being archived, uploaded into the game, into the house, into it. And then I opened my eyes. I was back in my bedroom. The sun rising outside, the game box on the table, closed, unopened. Except it wasn't mine anymore. It was yours. The camcorder lay on the floor, its screen flickering. And in the reflection of the black TV, I saw myself. Smiling. But not me, the face was wearing my skin like clothing. And then from behind the glass it whispered, "Play one round, just one. You don't have to remember yet." I don't remember waking up. I was just here. The house looked normal again. Morning sunlight spilled lazily across the floorboards, warming the rug where I'd once stood, shaking, holding a die etched with words like bleed and remember. The busted lamp in the corner stood perfectly upright. The mirror in the hall reflected nothing unusual. No flickers, no shadows, no stitched faces hiding behind my shoulder. Everything was as it should be, except it wasn't. Because I knew now, the game never ends. Not really. It just resets, waits, adapts. And I was no longer a player. I was part of the structure. I tried to scream once, just once, but no sound came out, like I'd traded my voice in that final passage. And maybe I had. I went to the door. It opened freely. I stepped out into the street. People passed, cars drove by, birds chirped. And yet every person I passed didn't look at me. Not once, not directly. It was like I existed in the corner of their vision, a glitch in the system they'd trained themselves to ignore. I checked my phone, no messages, no signal, but the camcorder file remained. Round 5 hours intro.move. Still unopened. I deleted it. It came back. I threw the phone in the trash behind the gas station. An hour later, it was back on my nightstand, still blinking, still recording. I started hearing the game again, not with my ears, but in the rhythm of everyday life. The ticking of a clock, a countdown, the flicker of a TV screen, a red prompt waiting for input. Every echo in a hallway whispered, "Your turn." And worst of all, I stopped being alone, not visibly, not physically, but spiritually. There was a pressure behind me at all times, like a weight pressing lightly between my shoulder blades. Sometimes if I turned my head just right, I'd catch it in windows, in puddles, in the metallic sheen of the microwave door. A version of me, standing silently, watching, smiling, waiting. I tried burning the house down, the old one, where it all started, but it wasn't there anymore. I drove back to the address. The street had changed. The lot was empty. No burned foundation, no for sale sign, just weeds, as if it had never been there to begin with. I knocked on the neighbors' doors. They told me nothing had been there for years. Some of them didn't even know what I was talking about. The game erases what it finishes with, cleans up after itself, but it leaves the door open. Because it doesn't just want players, it wants witnesses. That's what I am now. A recording that walks and breathes and carries the story forward. I've started seeing the box in strange places. Gas stations, thrift shops, back shelves at used bookstores. Always tucked in with other forgotten things. No title. Just that faded red eye on the lid. Sometimes I watch people find it. I never stop them, because I can't. That's part of the rules now. And sometimes, late at night, I hear a new voice whisper from behind the television. The game doesn't start with the first roll. It starts with the first lie. So if you're hearing this, if you've watched this story or read it or dreamt it, ask yourself, have you ever lied about what you did? Have you ever forgotten something too easily? Have you ever woken up with the feeling something is watching? Then maybe you already started playing and the next card, it has your name on it, bait. Dad and Da. If you've ever heard your name whispered in an empty room, if you've ever rolled a die and felt like something watched it land, if you've ever remembered something that never happened, or forgot something you swore was real, leave a comment, because that means the game found you too.